As a former Dean's List scholar in engineering and working engineer, I sucked at sales when I first started. But I also have to admit, I thought it was honestly beneath me. And having been in the seat now for nearly 5 years and learning some really painful lessons along the way, I can attest that smart people really suck at sales. And today I want to talk about why. Now, again, there's a lot of ways that this can be misinterpreted, and I don't want you to see this headline and think that just because smart people might suck at it, that anyone can do B2B sales. It really does take skill and it is challenging. However, the highly analytical types and the kinds of people with perfect test scores rarely work out in sales, if they ever even try at all. I'm gonna talk about 4 reasons why smart people suck at sales, and I'm gonna start with arguably the biggest point, which is that smart people want to optimize everything and not the right thing. Given that smart people have a tendency to optimize everything, that sounds like a good thing, but in sales, it's actually a major hindrance to being a successful salesperson. We oftentimes have to let go and accept that not everything is within our control. There's so many things that can impact a deal, and smart individuals, being problem solvers, tend to approach every aspect of sales with an analytical mindset, meticulously trying to perfect every minor detail, sometimes and oftentimes at the expense of the big picture. And like in an SDR role, what this means is overanalyzing and rereading an email 15 times before finally sending it. You're so nervous on a call because you don't want to say the wrong thing that you don't even have a genuine conversation with the person. And then because of that, you don't do enough volume in the first place to even connect with enough people to really start to get momentum, and you start to very quickly fail at your role. As you go up into higher roles in account executive, if you try to optimize everything, I've seen where people will spend time working on the wrong deals. And as I've learned the hard way, just because a person says they're interested doesn't mean they're actually going to buy. And I see overly analytical people, I struggled with this myself, spending time with prospects who aren't actually serious and or have the ability to actually buy the product. And so you'll spend weeks with a customer selling to them, but you should have known from the start that they weren't a qualified buyer in the first place. The difficult reality in sales is that you can't sell to everyone, and for a highly accomplished problem solver that's used to having all the answers, that is really difficult to accept, which leads me to my next point, and that is that smart people crave constant validation. Whether this is conscious or subconscious, the modern education system often means that really smart people are constantly reminded and rewarded and praised for their ability their entire childhood. You're constantly given feedback by getting back perfect test scores, having adults remark how smart you are, never being challenged by your peers because you are always at or ahead of them, getting the best grades, getting the best test scores, etc. And I know this because I was a strong student as a kid. But the reality of sales is that you can get rejected 99 times in a day and get one yes, and that makes it a successful day. It is incredibly difficult to rewire your brain to take rejection, lose more than you win constantly, and still have the ability to consider that a great day. And as an AE, again, you could work deals for multiple months, even a year plus, and it may not close at all. Even if it does, you've already moved beyond it. You don't get that constant reinforcement and positive reinforcement that you're on the right track. And again, when you're accustomed to that and you aren't comfortable with less structured work, it's really difficult to rewire your brain to do that. Which brings me to my third point, that these loosely defined sales roles are really, really difficult. If you've been told your whole life that you're smart, it's not easy to step into a job that doesn't strictly rely on your direct hard skills. Sales is a nuanced profession, and there are some hard skills that help, don't get me wrong, but it's also about reading people, thinking on your feet, figuring it out on the go while talking to people in real time. And it's not about knowing the most, it's not about who has the best degrees, who's the most qualified, but rather who can connect with the customer and build trust by helping them understand how their problems can be solved. For smart people who are used to operating within clearly defined boundaries and roles, this lack of structure is really daunting, and it was difficult for me myself. You can give what you think is the right answer to a prospect, and even if your product is a great fit, they could have budget cuts, a VP may change their strategy, which makes your tool and initiative less important, and oftentimes a prospect would get busy and they'll straight up ghost you after having 3 or 4 really great conversations. There's frameworks in sales that help, but there's truly not a single playbook or strategy that works 100% of the time, which is really difficult to digest if you're a smart person, used to studying strategies in theory, used to getting those 100+% A pluses on a structured and defined test. When you don't have that, it gets really, really difficult. And lastly, smart people are used to solving problems on the front lines, and it's really difficult to step back and not be directly involved in the implementation. Think about your peers in high school or college that were always getting good grades. They would always dive into the details, dissect the problem, find the solution, and implement it themselves with multiple answers. And one of the most difficult things for even me to accept moving into a sales role from engineering was that once the product was sold, I was hands off with the product and had to rely on other team members to focus on the successful implementation and growth. Sales really does require a broader view than someone who implements on the front lines, and you have to understand and serve the needs of clients working across multiple teams without getting too caught up in the minutia. As a salesperson, you're the bridge between the client and the solution, which means you can't be the one implementing the solution at that granular level. And on top of that, salespeople also have to deal with negative feedback from those on the front lines that don't think you know what you're talking about, which is really difficult when you're used to being the one that has all the answers. Again, you can tell from my experience that was a difficult adjustment. And again, this isn't to say that smart people can't excel in sales. I was academically a pretty good student and was able to kind of make that transition. And also, if you haven't been a strong academic achiever, it doesn't mean that you're going to be good at sales either, right? But I say this from my own experience as someone that really struggled to get out of my own way when I started my sales career, overthinking so many things. And I work with a lot of smart people that are breaking into sales, and I see so many who can't get out of their own way. They overanalyze every situation, which causes them in real time to underperform in interviews and beyond. I hope you got some value out of that if you're considering that move. And if you're looking into tech sales as a career, you can check out a free mini course in the description that gives you a better idea of what the career is like in the first place. But thanks as always, and see you next week.